Good morning. Good morning. I'd like to thank everyone for coming to today's mayoral debate. This is a CICA forum, which we do periodically over the year. Over the year, we conduct a number of CICA forums to share information with the community on a variety of topics. Today, we're going to have all three candidates and appreciate their willingness to come and talk about all of the challenges that face the city. What you'll see, I hope some of you have gotten this little handout. This is about CICA and some of the projects we're doing. That's the only advertisement we're doing. CICA is a 501c3 committed to civic engagement for changing our community for the positive. So we look forward to working or hearing from people and participating. We structure this forum as a balanced forum, right? We're here to hear what the candidates think about some of the challenges that face Oxnard and how they would solve problems going forward, making Oxnard a better community. And in this election season today that boggles the imagination, we're going to see today. I'm going to ask Tom to go over the guidelines that we've shared with the candidates. We have slips of paper for questions. If you have questions that you'd like to ask, we'll do our best to fit them into the questions that we already have. If that doesn't happen, we will try to get the answers and then post the answers on our website. This is being live streamed, and the video will also be available afterwards if you'd like to go back to it on our website, KADY-TV. It'll also be on their website. Okay. So with that, Mr. Peterson.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tom Peterson, and I will be the moderator for today. This debate is set up to be moderated, in which we will give a chance for responses by each candidate to each question asked. We ask the audience to please hold your applause until we are completed with the program as well. The debate will begin with each candidate having 2 minutes in order to make an opening statement, which should also include an introduction on who each of them are. Members of the audience, as I mentioned earlier, you are invited and encouraged to submit questions. They do need to be in writing, and if you have not submitted them and wish to submit them, there is a gentleman in the back in a yellow shirt who will be happy to collect them. Please do so fairly soon because we start kind of sifting. As I mentioned before, we will do our best to get everyone's question answered. If it has been our experience that many times you'll have a question that may be similar to ones already asked, in which case we won't repeat them. But the other thing is, if there is a different question, we will do our best that if it does not get asked during the debate, we will get it resolved and post it for you at a later date on our website. As moderator, it's my job to exercise some control. We have seen some crazy debates on the national platform, but I have a feeling that our local platform is much more civilized and much easier to control in that sense. These are three very, very nice gentlemen. I've had a chance to meet all of them at some point, and I think you'll find yourself getting some good information, good insight today from how they all think. Each question that gets asked, they will get 90 seconds to respond to the question. Doesn't sound like a lot of time, so the answers do have to be succinct, but we do need to ask to keep to the timeline so we can get through as best we can. If at any time there is a statement where a candidate is put into, whether it's, I don't want to say an attack, but something where they're challenged, we will give them a 30-second rebuttal time as well. You, as mayor, utilize to ensure your oversight of city finances?
Well, it's no mystery about what the city of Oxnard has endured and gone through over the last 2 years. In essence, we now have, for the very first time in a decade, a truly balanced budget that recognizes the fact that we had a structural deficit. Structural deficit means each and every year, unless there's new revenue, you're going to be in the hole. So we cut $12 million out of the last fiscal year budget. We also, for the very first time, truly balanced the budget before it was smoke and mirrors. We did a forensic audit of the city's finances. We got a clean bill of health. Obviously, there were a lot of recommendations, and 97 out of 112 recommendations were about internal control. So the specific question is, what would I do? Well, we need those positions in finance, internal controls, that make sure as a checks and balance, because there are very few checks and balances in local government, unlike the federal government. So the checks and balance are having those internal controls, having adequate staffing, and I'm looking forward to the discussion about public safety later on, how city councils have to balance the spending. I mean, we had a finance department and an HR department that was absolutely ravaged, absolutely left to skin and bones, so no internal controls. We need to make sure those people that are responsible for internal controls are put into place. Again, 97 out of 112 recommendations of that last audit. The state of California was asked by people who were skeptics of the city's process to take a look at this audit, and they gave the audit a clean bill of health.
I'll tell you that I'm seriously concerned, not only as a former city employee and manager, but as a private resident and taxpayer. We look at the last two and a half years, and we see that we've gone through 3 chief financial officers in the city of Oxnard. Whether you're in public industry or private sector, whenever there is something that just simply isn't looking or smelling right, people head for the exits, and that's what we've had here in Oxnard. As you all may know, the city of Oxnard has become the second city, the first since Bell, California. We all remember seeing the scandal that happened in Bell, California, to be scrutinized by the state controller's office. We did get a clean bill of health when it comes to the first threshold with the federal grants that we receive. But in terms of the general fund and all our other accounts, that's still very much in question. I'm glad that the state controller's office is coming in so that I think we all can have a little bit of peace of mind moving forward with, quite frankly, what is our real financial standing. In terms of the concerns that people have, there are folks in our community who believe that all of this was a manufactured financial crisis because the city employee groups were coming up for expired contracts, and that is of serious concern. I look forward to the final report from the State Controller's Office to give us, like I said, not only a peace of mind, but more clarity as to what our health is, and see if we have been led down a road that, quite frankly, did not reflect our investments and our accounts. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much. First off, allow me to say that one of the things that I did when I was with PetSmart, whether I was an area manager or district manager, is I managed large budgets. I managed budgets that were in excess of $300 million when I was managing the multiple locations. When I think about the city situation, it really brings me down to 3 things. Number 1, people. Number 2, process. Number 3, leadership. People meaning that we have to hire and staff the right individuals with the right talents and skills, and we are definitely paying them well, so we need to get the right talent. When we think about process, there was no processes in place, and that's what we need to put in place, whether it's internal audits, visibility, anything that we can publish for the community to see, it should be out there. When it comes to contracts, it shouldn't be closed contracts, right? It's not about giving your buddy the best deal. So at the end of the day, it's about getting that transparency. The third thing is leadership. I always look at leadership as extremely important. because the leader is the one that sets the vision and drives and also follows up and ensures that things are getting done within that organization, in this particular case within the city. And those are all three of the big skills that I bring to the table. I understand the people, the process, and the leadership pieces that helps to rebuild an organization and to help drive that organization where it needs to be. Thank you.
Gentlemen, describe your vision for Oxnard redevelopment and revitalization of downtown.
So Oxnard just now, we're transitioning from the former redevelopment agency, which was abolished by the California State Legislature and Governor Brown about 4 years ago. And now with that post-redevelopment era, it's up to local governments then to figure out on their own, without support from the state of California, how they're going to revitalize their communities. We have, I grew up here in the city of Oxnard. Our downtown was the place to go for the whole county of Ventura. And so if there's a fault I have, I'm a bit nostalgic. We have figured, however, that in order to have a sustainable downtown and a bright future for the downtown, that's the place, not right here on the corner, but that's the place that we want to have loft apartments, attract people with higher disposable incomes, attract retail. It's not going to be brand retail like at River Park, the Collection, but have maybe a more authentic version of the Collection right downtown. That it begins with people in the downtown that are going to patronize those establishments, and it comes with implementing a plan that the city got in its hands about 7 years ago with a company called Destination Development, and it is creating a new focus on the downtown plaza area.
In terms of downtown, we actually had a debate a couple weeks ago by the Oxnard Downtown Management District that really focused on this exact same question of a vision. Then I described downtown Oxnard as a diamond in the rough. And the tremendous opportunity that it has for investors and businesses to really get in at the floor level at a great time for the greatest return for their investment, but we need to bring that investment to Oxnard. I agree that we've seen other parts of the city, including the Collection, thrive, really boom and be an attractor, if you will, for folks from other parts of the county. I've seen people and have heard of people from Ojai and the Conejo Valley that come to shop at the businesses that we've been able to attract to Oxnard. The reason that the Collection has been able to thrive is because we have the density to support the businesses there. We drive through the back side of the Collection and we just see an entire new community of young families and quite frankly also of mixed-use housing that is available. I agree that we really need to attract and develop Oxnard with housing for perhaps students, take advantage of our proximity to Cal State Channel Islands, as well as young professionals who tend to have more of a discretionary spending to really support the businesses in Oxnard. But one of the things I would do is develop an ad hoc committee of not only the Downtown Management District, residents, the INCO, to really put together a strategic plan of ideas that they can bring back to us in 90 days and let that really drive us forward and then really turn them to be an advisory group moving forward. There is tremendous opportunity and we just have not had a champion for downtown to really develop it for us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. First off, let me be brief. I think we all agree that the downtown area has to be rejuvenated with an urban style environment with mixed use. That's what makes the most sense because it's going to have a community that's going to be able to support the businesses, and it's also going to help with public safety because now you're looking at more people on the streets, more eyes on the streets, and that's going to also assist. But what do we need to do to get there? That's the question. One, we need to work to create a development-ready project to streamline the permit process and revisit the impact fees to make it a shovel-ready project. Two, we need to infill the existing city-owned properties as a starting point to create and encourage the urbanization of the downtown. Three, we need to work with the current business owners to seek partnerships on how we can get them started with the downtown revitalization so they are also part of this. So whether it's trying to find them the funding or the resources that they need. The reality is at the end of the day, we need to create a downtown that serves our residents where they live so that they don't have to go to Ventura to go out for entertainment. They don't have to go there for an art walk. That should all be done in our downtown. We want that tax revenue to stay where it needs to stay, and that's here in Oxnard. Thank you.
We seem to have a homeless issue here in Oxnard. What, if anything, is going to be done in Oxnard to address this extensive homeless problem?
There are 1,800 homeless people in the county of Ventura. 2/3 of the homeless reside in the cities of Oxnard and Ventura, ostensibly because of the climate. I have said that the revitalization of downtown in particular cannot and will not take place until the homeless issue or homelessness issue is squarely dealt with. City Council just took up that issue again on Tuesday, and when I say again, what it really comes down to is taking scarce resources, whether it's for the police department, the fire department, or other city departments, taking resources away from those departments and allocating it towards a solution for the homeless problem. Otherwise, the solution would have been come up with a long time ago. The council is poised right now. This winter, we have a partnership with Ventura, so the homeless will be residing at the Armory, in the National Guard Armory in Ventura. But in a longer-term solution sense, we're looking at building a joint facility or finding a joint facility, because we have the homeless migrate back and forth between the two cities. A joint facility that really is going to get to the core, though, of homelessness. And most people that are chronically homeless, not all, but most people that are chronically homeless suffer from mental illness. And unfortunately, they're service resistant. So we got to get to the core of that, and I intend on doing so.
I actually shared something with my supporters yesterday, and it was an LA Times article highlighting that Southern California officials gathered in Long Beach to demand more homeless funding. Quite frankly, we saw what bold leadership looks like with a difficult issue such as our homelessness. We are seeing this growing problem and how it can affect not only residents but businesses. In terms of what the city has done, we really need to examine what we have done. The last couple cycles, we've really been up against a chilling winter before the city was forced to take action on this. We can certainly look at what's worked. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We're able to look at what the city of Los Angeles and communities throughout LA have been able to do and scale those programs down to something that's manageable, that will serve us not only for our city, but quite frankly also in partnership with the city of Ventura and the county. We're able to look at what other mayors have done, for example in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with a brilliant, simple idea, and he called the program A Better Way. He looked at an opportunity to partner with community-based organizations and service organizations, as well as the counties there, to develop this program that would go out and reach out to homeless individuals and offer them an opportunity for a job for the day. Oftentimes, homeless individuals are so dispirited and it's hard for them. But what they do is they provide them a job for the day, they provide a meal for them, and at the end of the day, if they so choose, they also provide them housing. They've been able to transition hundreds of individuals from homelessness to full-time jobs, and we need to really duplicate and look to emulate programs with a successful track record like that.
Great, thank you. Homelessness is a serious issue, not just here in Southern California and Oxnard, but throughout the country. It's a socio-economic issue that we have situations where you have mental issues, you have drug addiction, abuse, etc. And in order to address this, we have to start looking at the root cause and not just addressing presenting problems. In many cases, we may feel good just giving them a place to sleep or a plate of warm food, hot food for that day. But it's really about trying to figure out how do we get them out of that. We need to partner up as a city with more of the faith-based organizations, give them the resources so that they can go out and assist and assess. We need to also train some of our law enforcement officers to understand the different issues with homelessness, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's mental issues, and then provide liaisons so that we can provide them the services that they need. Once we're providing them these services, it's not just about giving them the service, but then how do we retrain them? How do we get them back into society again? So it's not an issue that I think that we can solve today. It's going to be a long-term issue, something we have, but the discussion has to be started. We have to start thinking about what we want Oxnard to stand for. Do we want Oxnard to be the city that cares for everyone or just cares for a few? Thank you.
Gentlemen, a few minutes ago you described your vision for redevelopment in downtown Oxnard. Please do the same in your approach or vision for planning of the harbor revitalization.
Well, it starts with a plan that has buy-in from the community. That's the root of it, of representative democracy. It is consent from the governed. You give your consent to those people who govern. And without that consent, from my perspective, it is illegitimate. So it starts with consent from those who are governed. The county has, for too long, taken Oxnard, and specifically the residents of Channel Islands Harbor, for granted. And you are not part of that process. We now, it appears, have our foot in the door. And that's where it begins. It begins with a new vision for the harbor and a charrette process that would involve you, a series of workshops to put together a new plan that a majority of the residents can buy into. All right? That's where it starts. So it starts with that plan. Secondly, we got to make sure that in that vision, that a part of that vision is it's not going to be necessarily a Marina Del Rey, because many people say we don't want a Marina Del Rey, nor do we want what we have now. So that in between is going to be up to not the county, it should be up to the residents. The residents should be the ones carving that vision, and leaders should be working with the residents. And that's what I've done on the Channel Islands Harbor Task Force, is asked again for a seat at the table. We now have a seat at the table. That vision, ladies and gentlemen, will bring back Fisherman's Wharf, which at one point was an attraction that people all across the state of California came to Fisherman's Wharf. And I know many of you remember that Fisherman's Wharf. I just don't understand where things went sideways, in the wrong direction.
I have to agree with many of the comments that were made to see what has brought us to this point here. We really need to be coming together to develop this shared vision and embrace a system of shared governance. Looking at my background, that's one of the things that people have oftentimes recognized me, not only for my community outreach, but for my public engagement. Really being able to bring diverse stakeholders and partners to the table to have some serious and, quite frankly, also difficult conversations about our future. We are able to look at many of the parts, if you will, that have since become blighted areas. I remember as a student having our homecoming dance at the Lobster Trap and how beautiful it was. And we look at how far it's come since then. There is tremendous opportunity, but we are going to need to bring all of you to the table to really develop what we have as a shared vision, and shared interest for not only the success of the harbor, but to really have it once again become a jewel and a thriving hub and destination, not only for our local residents, but also for folks coming in to leave their tax dollars here. Because as we know, when businesses succeed, Oxnard will be able to succeed. And so I definitely do see tremendous opportunity, but we are going to need all of you and all of your ideas to really develop that strategic plan, and then have someone with a leadership ability to bring about these public-private partnerships that will enable us to move forward and accomplish that goal and vision.
Great, thank you. First off, let me say that the revitalization of the harbor area is really going to start with everyone in this room, with you. The city doesn't have much control over the harbor, it's county, so we have to be able to work with the county, the board supervisors, to make sure that they're giving you, the community, a seat at the table when it comes to understanding what the planning needs to look like and what you want to see here. Because this is your community, this is your project. The city also needs to have that seat at the table to help with that vision. And we talked about, Tim spoke a little bit earlier about the revitalization plan for downtown and what he sees here. And yes, it could be a nice urban environment where we have different style of shops and it's a different community feel. But at the end of the day, It's really about you as a community. You're the ones that are going to make the difference and make that change. As a city, we can assist and help guide and help with that negotiation with the county, but it's really about you putting that pressure to allow the city a better seat at the table to look out for your best interests. Thank you.
With all of the new housing that's being developed and put up around in the area, it's apparent to many people that we need more services to support the harbor area. How would you address planning for traffic, mitigating traffic?
So it's an excellent question, and when I walk door to door, people ask me, Mayor, how come you keep approving all of these new housing developments when we have traffic problems and we don't have enough water? And my response is, these entitlements on these developments at the collection, or I should say at River Park, at Wagon Wheel, which is a redevelopment project, off of Hemlock and Victoria, every one of those projects was approved anywhere between about 8 and 15 years ago. Same thing with North Shore, which is at 5th Street and Harbor Boulevard. So every one of those projects was approved by previous city councils. I didn't have a hand in the approval of any of those projects, and I voted against the Hemlock project because I wanted to see something like Trader Joe's there, and that's a story for itself. But as far as infrastructure is concerned, we know that communities all across the nation have not invested in infrastructure. And so when it comes as an example to widening, some people have advocated the widening of Harbor Boulevard because it's become a freeway, or Victoria has become a freeway. And bottlenecks at the Santa Clara River Bridge. Well, you can imagine how much that bridge would cost to reconstruct that bridge. So on the ballot for transportation in particular is a transportation sales tax. I'm not an advocate of new sales taxes, but the bottom line is this: we're the largest county in the state of California without a transportation sales tax, and from that transportation sales tax will come new opportunities to deal with the traffic problem.
Thank you. We simply have to look at the city's housing element report that's available online, and it's in draft form since July of 2015, where no action has taken place. That report indicates that Oxnard can project an increase of 40,000 residents over the next 20 years. At the INCO State of the City that the mayor and the city manager spoke at, our city manager Greg Nyhoff actually said that we are more likely to grow by 65,000 individuals and new residents here in the city of Oxnard in the next 20 years. That is of concern. We simply don't have a strategic plan in place to be able to support that growth. We have competing interests and priorities with the SOAR initiatives to really limit our urban sprawl. I think that we simply need to look at the traffic that we're now experiencing. The bottleneck is no longer at the bridge, going over Santa Clara. It's at 5th Street and Victoria. On Harbor, it's now at 5th Street and Victoria, really delaying my own commute by an easy 10 to 15 minutes per day. It is problematic. Cities have not done enough to invest in our infrastructure, and quite frankly have neglected projects that needed to really move us forward. We've seen Oxnard grow from a small city to a mid-sized city and have failed to plan accordingly for that growth. We need to be smarter about our growth. We need to make sure that our new developments are livable, walkable communities, much like River Park, as well as Seabridge, with the businesses there that support local residences. But infrastructure is certainly going to be key to our future and our prosperity.
All right, well, first off, I think we can all agree that there is a lot of traffic and a lot of congestion within our city. The simple reality is that Oxnard is a growing city. It's a large city with a small town mentality, a small town feel, but at the end of the day, we're a growing city. And we have to continue to focus on our infrastructure and find ways to get the money that's required so that we can continue to grow. The reality is, the city of Oxnard is going to need more housing. As much as we would like to say that we want to stop the housing, we're going to need it, and it's going to continue to grow. So I know earlier it was mentioned about the county tax. That should help as far as infrastructure is concerned. But we have to face the reality, and the reality is we are growing as a city, and we do require more housing stock. But it's about how do we plan for that Are we smart about it? And then I know earlier, another debate, it was mentioned that there's some new software coming out that's going to help with redirect our traffic and our lights. I think Tim mentioned that, so I'll give you credit for that. So, you know, that of course is going to help. But we have to be realistic and understand that the city is going to grow, and we are growing.
Crime and public safety are big issues here. As mayor, how would you address the public safety challenges faced by Oxnard to reduce crime, respect the rights of all, and improve public safety at the same time?
It's a great question. The city of Oxnard, out of the 10 cities in Ventura County, spends more as a percentage of its budget. Our budget's $120 million a year, our general fund budget. We spend 66%, 2/3 of that budget, on fire and police. And to give you an idea of the ratios, in most cities, the spending of police versus fire is 2-to-1. In Oxnard, we spend 3-to-1. We spend 3 times more on the police department than the fire department. The real challenge, ladies and gentlemen, are pensions. I'm an advocate of public pensions, but they have to be sustainable. Right now, the city of Oxnard is covering 47% of a firefighter or police officer's salary. 47%. That means if a police officer or a firefighter makes $100,000 a year, we pay 47 grand a year on top of that. Now again, I support public pensions, but they are not part of the discussion today. I want them to be part of the discussion because the more money we spend on pensions, the less we spend on putting officers on the street. That's the bottom line. Last thing is, we had a post-release program. The state of California released prisoners from prisons to local communities because of overcrowding in prisons. Okay? We have a new strategy to deal with that. It involves community policing, and I intend on being a leader in the next 2 years on making sure that this community policing is implemented.
Many of us have lived in Oxnard for decades and not our entire lives. I think that we recognize what we had before, which was 18 years of decreasing crime throughout the entire city. Unfortunately, the last 4 years, we've seen an increase of crime of 67%. I think any of us would feel what a 67% tax is on a bottle of water, and we certainly feel it when it comes to crime. In 2012, and this was when the mayor first came into office, but with data of 2012, Oxnard was actually recognized as one of the 20 safest mid-sized cities in the United States. We were even recognized by Business Insider as one of the safest mid-sized cities in the entire United States. I'm not advocating to spend more on public safety. I'm quite frankly an advocate to spend smarter. Right now we are mandating our officers and our firefighters to work overtime, mandated overtime. They would rather spend that time with their children at soccer practices, at softball games, or with their expecting wives. We need to spend smarter. How are we going to accomplish this? Let's look at the track record of what I've been able to do. We've been able to bring about new innovative public engagement programs. Was recognized actually this past February as Employee of the Year for many of these programs that I helped bring to Oxnard. Really engaging residents to be partners in public safety, to really address the challenges and improve the quality of life, not only in their immediate neighborhoods, but working with businesses, community-based organizations, and churches and faith-based groups, all the people who make up our neighborhoods.
Great, thank you. First off, I want to say that I do support our law enforcement officers because I know that they're the kind of people that if they're alone in a desolate place with no one around and nobody watching, they're always going to do the right thing. And I'm very thankful for that. But with that said, we also have to rethink the way we do policing today. We have to think about youth diversion programs. What do we do to keep our younger generations out of trouble? We need to ensure that they have a place to go. Let's get them out of the shadows, let's get them into the parks, let's get them into the libraries, let's get them so that they're fulfilled and they're doing something in the community. We also need to rethink the way we do policing, community policing programs. We have to go out there, find those departments or those cities where it's done very well, and let's take those best developed practices and let's implement them here. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already getting done somewhere else out there, and I guarantee you that those police departments will be more than happy to share their programs with us. We also have to look at ensuring that we're building that community trust within our community, with our communities, so that it's a mutual trust between the police department and the residents. And the way we do that is just by changing the way we police. Is it possible to walk certain areas to create safety, get back on bikes, do some of the basics that we need to do? I also agree that the pension issues
Are out of control.
I must say, I think all three of you are doing a splendid job with your timing, so thank you very much. As mayor, you'd be faced with challenges of aligning the expense budget with revenues and addressing longer-term issues such as pension obligations and the maintenance of core infrastructure, streets, water, sewage, etc. What services would be your top 3 priorities and why?
So just to clarify the question before the time starts, I mean, when you say what 3 services, could you explain that again? I'm just sorry to make sure I answer it correctly.
Well, yeah. You have all these public services that need to take place to run the city. So if you were to pick 3 that are the most important in the next few years, what are they going to be and why?
Number 1, public safety. Number 2, economic development. And number 3, infrastructure and streets. Revenue. Ladies and gentlemen, not here at the harbor, not west of Ventura Road, we have a horrendous overcrowding problem in the city of Oxnard. We have in some instances 2 and 3 and 4 families crowding into one home. Many of those people are renting those homes, and those property tax bills are $500 a year. You have 3 and 4 families living in one house, and that landlord is paying $500 a year for property taxes because it's, Prop 13, it's frozen. We have property taxes that are nowhere near. I'm not advocating that we raise property taxes. What I'm saying is that we need to deal with this overcrowding problem. It has been my mission, it has been my passion for the last 12 years to end overcrowding in the city of Oxnard. We already lead the county in the building of affordable housing. We need now to enforce the codes. We need to take this situation that's like New York City 100 years ago with immigrants. We need to end it. It's true that we need the supply side of affordable housing, but the overcrowding situation is presenting unbelievable fiscal challenges to this city, and I intend on addressing it.
The mayor mentioned his 3 points, and I looked at Armando to my right and showed him my notes. Public safety, economic development, and infrastructure. He joked, look at mine, same one. So we just have different, I think, approaches and visions for these important priorities. In terms of public safety, I mentioned the significant increase in crime that we've seen. We have to be smarter about our policing. I'm proud to have the support of the Oxnard Peace Officers Association because they see what I've been able to do to really engage the community in ways that will not cost us financially, but will pay dividends by simply bringing stakeholders together to really address our criminal element and strengthen our crime prevention efforts. Nextdoor.com was one of those examples. A lot of you communicate on Nextdoor.com. It was myself and Assistant Chief Benitez who brought Nextdoor.com to Oxnard, not only for the public safety, but also for the communication in building a community amongst neighborhoods throughout Oxnard. Second, economic development. So the mayor, again, a couple weeks ago at the INCO State of the City, mentioned that economic development was one of the 4 strategic priorities for the city. At present, we have 1 full-time employee to carry that important function forward. We need to invest in economic development because, like I mentioned, when businesses succeed, Oxnard will be able to succeed because we will have additional tax revenue to deliver the public services that we need. Third and final, infrastructure, from streets to our wastewater, and utilities. We need to invest in our infrastructure because for too long, after decades of neglect, we have come between a rock and a hard place, and we need to be smart about planning for the future.
Great, thank you. Well, I think we're all aligned on the 3, and everybody spoke very eloquently, so I'll keep this brief. Infrastructure, I do believe, is a top priority for us as a city. Like we said, whether it's our streets and our roads. Obviously, if we have a road that has potholes, then the traffic slows down and it creates congestion, etc. So we have to address that. Also for our commerce that we have through the city. The other thing we have to look at from an infrastructure perspective is, like we said, the sewage, the raw sewage, and then also our water as well, to make sure we're able to supply the city and take care of the needs. Public safety, the big thing with public safety that was a concern to me is really our pension obligations. And with the Carmen, we have to look at, a city is carrying a lot more of those pension expenses, so we have to start reconsidering that and reviewing what is right. The other thing, when I look at economic development, I think about economic development, it's really about how do we attract more of those businesses that we need here to the city of Oxnard. That is something that I believe that I bring to the table because I've been in a corporate environment. I understand what businesses need and require, so that we can get these committees of local residents, of business entrepreneurs and business people to come together and let's go attract these businesses. Let's go to the trade shows, let's talk to them about how good Oxnard is, and let's make Oxnard a business-friendly community.
One of the toughest jobs as mayor is having to work with a lot of people and a lot of ideas, a lot of principles. What principles and experience would guide you through making very difficult compromises? Because that's the reality, is we can't have 100% of everything we want all the time, but compromise is important.
Well, politics is the art of compromise. Sometimes people don't like to hear that because they think people are compromising their principles. And I believe that as mayor, mayor is not just a public policy advocate, and that's my main goal of why I'm mayor of the city of Oxnard. It's not for the title, it's not for anything else. It's about public policy. It's about changing the way that, it's about quality of life in the city. And it's creating public policy that's consistent with the highest quality of life. And to get there, you have to build consensus. And I have 4 other colleagues on the city council. I have a record of accomplishment of building that consensus. A mayor not only has to have his or her own public policy goals and objectives, but being able to work with the council as a whole. And you've seen the meetings, and sometimes they can become contentious because sometimes council members don't agree. But my goal as a consensus builder, as a mayor, is to get the best we can for the people, to raise the quality of life, and to get the council to follow that lead.
As a student of diversity, equity, inclusion, I really have had tremendous opportunities and the experience to participate in shared systems of governance. And what does that mean? That quite frankly means engaging our stakeholders, our residents, and anyone who has a shared interest in whatever issue, piece of legislation is coming forward, and that their voice has been included in that process. I'll tell you that as mayor, our primary duty will not only be to lead, but to legislate. And as such, in terms of what will guide me, I'll say that it is going to be always one thing, and that is doing what is right and what will be moving us forward towards improving the quality of life for our community. I believe that when it comes to any piece of legislation or development plan that comes before City Council, it should come before the neighborhood councils first. That always doesn't happen. When it's brought to City Council oftentimes kicks it back to neighborhood councils and kicks the developer and the folks working on that development to go back, really losing the momentum that we have. Even in moments of crisis like the one that we're in now, and some would argue that we've been in an extended period of crisis, a great leader will not only see opportunity, but will have the capacity, the skills to seize it. We really need to seize the momentum when it presents itself, because we are missing out on way too many opportunities where businesses and other folks are going to our neighboring cities or even leaving the state.
So the principles that guide me and have guided me throughout my business career and my personal life are really honesty and integrity. It's about the desire, in my case, to serve the community and to make those difficult decisions that are right for the residents of the city of Oxnard. In business and working in a corporate environment, I always had to make difficult decisions that made sense for all stakeholders. In many cases, it had decisions that trimming staff, doing different things that you don't want to do, but you have to in order to make that business profitable. And they're very difficult decisions that you have to make because you're affecting people's livelihoods, you're affecting people's lives. And I bring that experience with me to the city because I will be able to understand what the needs are and work with others. As a leader, you have to be able to guide, whether it's setting a vision, setting a goal, and being able to guide individuals through that. I know it's very different in government because there are certain laws that prevent you from doing that, but it's about the leadership aspect and setting those priorities correctly. Sorry.
Gentlemen, we've gotten to a point where we'd like to start wrapping it up. So I'm going to present each of you 2 minutes to make any closing comments, statements, or whatever you'd like, within reason.
And I'd like to start by saying that I'm asking you for your vote for another 2 years based on my record of accomplishment. And I want to speak very quickly of what Armando had to say. 2 years ago, you asked me to restore honesty and integrity to Oxnard City Hall. I've delivered. We hired and I presided over the hiring of the most competent and honest city manager any city could ever have. We've replaced every single department head, and we've rid Oxnard of its long legacy of patronage, nepotism, and awarding public contracts to friends. That's why I became mayor, because the people believed, because of my positions with previous administrations, I was in the opposition, I fought this nepotism, I fought the patronage, and I fought these contracts being handed out to friends. So I've restored honesty and integrity, and let me tell you, it also hits the pocketbook. I do not accept one single dime from a special interest. No union money, no developer money, because that, from my perspective, compromises a person's honesty and their judgment. If the union's going to give me money to get reelected as mayor, they're going to expect delivery. They're going to expect that their contracts are going to go up. They're going to expect that I'm going to be quiet about the pension issue. Ladies and gentlemen, I refuse to do that. I'm going to do what's right. And it starts with honesty and integrity. You asked me to get businesses going again. I've led an effort over the last 2 years to completely revamp our development services and our permitting process. Now we have a one-stop shop and we're moving forward. You've asked me to deal with the traffic issue. We're just now on the cusp of, again, $240,000 software program to implement traffic mitigation here in the city of Oxnard. And finally, right, I'm rooted in you. I cannot serve without your consent. Thank you very much.
I also want to thank you all for the opportunity and for joining us in this important conversation. Today we are 30 days out from election and we have so much work to do. When I launched my campaign, I told people what my priorities for this city were going to be, because quite frankly I believe that it's going to set the foundation for who we will become. First is public safety, and we need to reprioritize what is public safety. I mentioned to you that the increase that we've seen in the last 4 years alone. Second, economic development, and I mentioned that quite frankly, we also only have one person to carry this important function forward. As a child, it used to take 3 of us, my father, my brother, and me, to do our front and backyard. We need more help and more resources in this area of the city, because when businesses succeed, again, Oxnard will be able to succeed. Third and finally, I'm running to restore what is public trust, vision, and leadership in the office of the mayor and throughout City Hall. We talked about the 150 vacancies that the city currently has throughout the city. Those 150 full-time vacancies translates to over 6,000 hours of public services that are not being delivered to the hardworking people of Oxnard. That is problematic. We can do better. We must do better. That is stifling our growth, and that is stifling our progress. We need a leader with bold leadership, who is a consensus builder, who can bring these diverse stakeholders to the table to have these difficult conversations, and I am that proven leader with that track record. I care deeply about this community. I care deeply about its future, and I care deeply about the next generation. We all have a responsibility, much like people before us were thinking of those of us here today. We need to think about those that will come tomorrow and leave our city in a far better state than we currently are in. I'm proud of the support that I've gathered from people far and wide, north, south, east, and west Oxnard, because we all have a shared interest in its future. And so not only am I here to ask for your vote of confidence, I'm here to ask for your vote on November 8th. And we also have an event on Tuesday here at Waterside, 5 to 7. I encourage you to come out for the meet and greet, ask me additional questions, but look forward to speaking with you after this today.
Great, thank you. So let me close with this, and I'll leave you with the following. This November, you have a choice. And your choice is, do we stay with the status quo? Do we go for inexperience in business and life and leadership? Or do you seek that candidate who has 20 years of business and leadership experience, who understands the dynamics of the community and understands the dynamics of business? Do you go for a candidate who made a decision early on to not seek endorsements, to not raise any funds, because my entire campaign is self-funded. I have not accepted one dime from a resident or from any organization, because I don't want to owe favors. At the end of the day, it's about you, it's about the residents of the city of Oxnard, and not special interests. Yeah, so you have to really think about who is going to look after your best interests, because that's what we're talking about. It's about the best interest of the city, and that's what this is about. It's not about any other organization. It's about being able to have that bold leadership that is truly going to sit down with all parties and say, let's figure this out so that we can drive Oxnard forward. We cannot do business like it was done in the past. Things have to change, and I'm that change agent. I will do that for you because I want to serve you, the community, and the residents of Oxnard. Thank you.
We encourage each of you to get involved, vote, talk to people, find out what's going on. That's important at both our state as well as federal levels. We also encourage you to, any three or all three, if you wish additional information about their platform, their information, or activities that they're doing, contact their headquarters or people who work with them to get further information than what you're hearing today. We have, if you didn't see it earlier, on behalf of CICA, we have information on the back that's just some projects that CICA has been involved in as well. And on behalf of CICA, we want to thank the candidates for attending. We want to thank KADY-TV and Citizens Journal. And most importantly, we want to thank all of you in the audience for being here today. Without you, this forum has been terrific, and we appreciate these three taking their time. I'd like to turn the microphone back over to Mike Mercadani for some closing comments.
All right, thank you, and thanks to all of you. It was great, really informative, and I think we value the information you shared here today with us. As Tom said, there's some information, some sample information that we have about CICA and some of the projects. You can find information on our website at cicainc.org, or you can send an email to info@cicainc.org. The one item I'd like to bring to your attention, we're going to be scheduling another forum in the not-too-distant future, which will be an update on the Fisherman's Wharf project, some of the things that have been going on in the status since the Board of Supervisors approved the project, and where that project is with respect to the Coastal Commission discussion. So look for that announcement. We'll be doing a similar forum. And again, thank you for attending and taking time out of a beautiful Saturday to be here today.
Enjoy your day.